Something just broke in the silver market, not the price. The delivery system itself. The bridge connecting paper promises to physical metal just collapsed. This is not another technical analysis video. This is documentation. The moment we've been tracking finally arrived. The COMEX just did something they swore they would never do. They declared force majeure on silver deliveries. Force majeure. Legal language for we cannot fulfill our obligations due to extraordinary circumstances. But force majeure in commodities is supposed to be for hurricanes, wars, acts of God, not for running out of silver. But that's exactly what happened. The exchange that sets global silver prices just admitted they cannot deliver. They ran out. How does a commodity exchange run out of a commodity? The answer tells you everything about how broken this system is. For decades, the COMEX operated on a simple assumption. Most people who buy silver futures don't actually want silver. They want a trade price movement. So when contracts expire, they roll forward or settle for cash. Maybe 1% demand physical delivery. The system was built for that 1%. But something changed this year. Instead of rolling forward, they started demanding delivery. Instead of taking cash, they demanded metal. 1% became 10%, then 20, then 50. Delivery notices piled up. 43,000 contracts in December alone, each representing 5,000 ounces. That's 215 million ounces demanded from COMEX vaults. Global mining produces about 850 million ounces yearly. So in 1 month, one exchange was asked to deliver 25% of annual global production. From vaults never meant to hold that much. The math broke. Reality broke through the paper facade. This is where it gets interesting. The people demanding delivery weren't retail traders. They weren't small speculators. The delivery notices were coming from institutional accounts, industrial accounts, the kind with licenses to move large quantities of precious metals across borders, the kind representing foreign governments, central banks, and industrial giants who need silver for solar panels, electric vehicles, and military systems. They were draining the COMEX. Systematically, deliberately, and the exchange fought back the only way they knew how. They started rationing. They started delaying. Your specific bar isn't available right now, but we can get you one next month. There's a paperwork issue with that delivery. The refinery is backed up. Classic stalling tactics. But stalling only works if the other side is willing to wait. These buyers weren't willing to wait. They had contracts. Legal contracts that promised delivery of physical silver by a specific date. When that date came and went without delivery, they did what any rational party does when the other side breaches a contract. They called their lawyers. COMEX was looking at cascade delivery failures, hundreds of contracts, billions in potential liability, so they chose the nuclear option. Instead of admitting they'd been running a fractional reserve scam, instead of admitting they'd sold more silver than they controlled, they declared force majeure. We cannot deliver your silver due to extraordinary circumstances beyond our control. But what were those extraordinary circumstances? A global silver shortage? That's predictable. The deficit has been building for years. Supply chain disruptions? Silver bars don't spoil or expire. No, the extraordinary circumstance was very simple. They never had the silver in the first place. The registered inventory, metal supposed to back these contracts, was already pledged, already encumbered. Same bars backing multiple contracts, same ounces promised to multiple buyers. This is rehypothecation, taking one asset and using it as collateral for multiple obligations. Works fine as long as everyone doesn't show up asking for their stuff simultaneously. But when they do, when 50% demand delivery instead of 1%, the emperor has no clothes. Vaults are empty, system collapses, and that collapse just got official documentation. Force majeure. Declaring force majeure on silver deliveries doesn't just affect people expecting silver next week. It affects the entire global pricing mechanism. Think about it. If the COMEX cannot deliver physical silver, then what exactly are people trading when they trade COMEX silver futures? They're trading nothing. They're trading a promise that the exchange has just admitted it cannot keep. They're trading paper backed by more paper. The price discovery mechanism just broke. So what happens to the price? That depends on which price you're talking about. The paper price might actually go down, because if you can't get delivery, why pay a premium for an unfulfillable contract? But the physical price, the price of actual silver bars and coins you can hold, that price is about to go vertical. Because if the largest silver exchange in the world cannot deliver silver, where exactly are industrial users supposed to get their metal? Tesla needs silver for their cars. Apple needs silver for their phones. Defense contractors need silver for radar systems and missile guidance. They can't wait for the COMEX to sort out their inventory problems. They need metal now, so they're going to have to go to the physical market, the spot market, the market where real bars change hands for real money. And that market just lost its biggest supplier. Supply goes down. Demand stays the same. Price goes up. Basic economics. Except it's not quite that simple because the physical market is also having problems. The major dealers, the ones who usually bridge the gap between the exchanges and the end users, are reporting allocation delays stretching weeks into the future. We can get you silver, but it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. We can get you silver, but there's a significant premium over spot. We can get you silver, but we need payment in full before we even place the order. These are not the words of a market with abundant supply. These are the words of a market in shortage. A market where the suppliers have more power than the buyers. A market where price becomes negotiable because availability is uncertain. This is what unobtainium looks like. Not that the metal doesn't exist, but that it's not available at published prices, not available through normal channels, not available without significant delays, premiums, and special arrangements. The industrial users are starting to panic because just-in-time inventory management only works when the time part is reliable. When your supplier calls you and says, "That silver you ordered for next month's production run, we can't get it. Maybe try again in March." Your production line stops. Your factory goes dark. Your revenue stream disappears. This is the real consequence of the COMEX force majeure. Not just that some traders can't get delivery of their futures contracts, but that the entire industrial supply chain for silver-dependent products is about to seize up. And once it seizes up, once the Tesla factories go quiet because they can't get the silver they need for their battery contacts, once the solar panel manufacturers shut down their lines, once the defense contractors start missing delivery dates on critical systems, the ripple effects spread through the entire economy. The politicians will demand answers. The regulators will launch investigations. The media will finally start paying attention. But by then, it will be too late. The damage will already be done. The confidence in the paper markets will be shattered. The trust in the delivery system will be broken. And that's when the real panic begins. Not the panic of traders worried about their positions, but the panic of corporations worried about their supply chains. The panic of governments worried about their strategic reserves. The panic of central banks worried about their monetary system. Because silver isn't just another commodity. It's not like corn or oil or copper. Silver is money. It has been money for thousands of years. And when the system that's supposed to deliver money breaks down, when the exchange that's supposed to provide price discovery admits it can't actually deliver the underlying asset, you're not just looking at a commodity crisis. You're looking at a monetary crisis. The COMEX force majeure isn't just an admission that they can't deliver silver. It's an admission that the entire paper-based monetary system is built on promises they cannot keep. Promises backed by nothing but the faith that nobody will actually show up asking for delivery. Well, somebody just showed up, a lot of somebodies, and the system just admitted it cannot deliver. The game is over, the emperor has no clothes, the vaults are empty, and physical silver just became the most sought-after asset on the planet. Not because the price went up, but because you literally cannot get it anymore. But let me paint you the exact picture of what happened in the 48 hours leading up to this force majeure declaration. Because the COMEX didn't just wake up one morning and decide to break the global silver market. This was a controlled demolition. And the warning signs were everywhere if you knew where to look. It started with what insiders are calling the Friday Massacre. Last Friday, the COMEX registered inventory dropped by 2.1 million ounces in a single day. Not moved from registered to eligible. not shuffled between vaults, gone, physically removed from the exchange system. That's the equivalent of 4 months of production from a major silver mine, vanishing overnight. The exchange tried to spin it as routine inventory management, but there's nothing routine about losing 2.1 million ounces when you're already running on fumes. The remaining registered inventory fell below 30 million ounces for the first time in the exchange's history. 30 million ounces to back contracts representing over 200 million ounces of silver. The math doesn't work. It never worked. But now everyone can see it doesn't work. Then came Monday. The delivery notices for the March contracts started flooding in. Not the usual trickle of industrial hedgers and small speculators. A tsunami of institutional demand. We're talking about notice holders representing sovereign wealth funds, central bank trading desks, and what sources describe as entities with diplomatic immunity. These aren't people you can sweet-talk into taking cash settlement. These are people who can shut down your exchange with a phone call to the right regulator. The COMEX clearinghouse went into emergency session Monday night. The meeting lasted until 4 a.m. Tuesday. What do you think they were discussing for 8 hours? Whether to raise margin requirements? Whether to adjust contract specifications? No. They were doing math. Desperate, panicked math. How much silver do we actually have? How much have we promised? How much can we deliver? How much can we stall? And when they finished their calculations, they realized they were facing what banking professionals call catastrophic shortfall. Not a temporary squeeze, not a liquidity crunch. Complete insolvency in physical terms. Tuesday morning brought the margin calls. Not on the long side, on the short side. The commercial hedgers, the mining companies who had sold forward production that won't exist for months, suddenly found themselves facing margin requirements that exceeded their available credit lines. Some of the smaller operations got liquidated instantly. Their short positions were bought in at market prices that made their shareholders weep. But the real panic started when word leaked out of J.P. Morgan. Sources inside the bullion trading desk reported that senior management called an all-hands meeting Tuesday afternoon. The topic? Precious metals exposure reassessment. Translation: how screwed are we, and how do we get unscrewed? Because here's what most people don't understand about the major bullion banks. They're not just market makers. They're not just intermediaries, they're the backbone of the entire delivery system. When industrial companies need silver, they don't call mines. They call J.P. Morgan or HSBC or Deutsche Bank. And those banks are supposed to source the metal from the COMEX system. But what happens when the COMEX system breaks down? What happens when there's no metal to source? The banks become liable for delivery failures to their own industrial clients. We're talking about breach of contract lawsuits that could reach into the billions. We're talking about the kind of legal exposure that threatens the existence of these institutions. So they made a choice. Better to let the COMEX fail than to fail themselves. Better to let the exchange declare force majeure than to face the personal liability of delivery defaults. They withdrew their support. They stopped backstopping the system. They essentially told the COMEX, you're on your own. And that's when the mathematics of reality finally caught up with the fantasy of fractional reserves. Wednesday morning, the COMEX opened with exactly 0 registered silver available for immediate delivery. 0. The vaults were either empty or contained metal that was already allocated, already spoken for, already promised to someone else. The first delivery default occurred at 10:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Contract number SH2634099, representing 5,000 ounces of silver, scheduled for delivery to an undisclosed institutional counterparty. The exchange couldn't deliver. Not wouldn't. Couldn't. The metal didn't exist in deliverable form. By noon, there were 17 more defaults. By close of trading Wednesday, 43 contracts had failed to deliver. That's 215,000 ounces of silver that the exchange promised but couldn't provide. And Thursday? Thursday morning brought the inevitable conclusion. The emergency board meeting lasted exactly 14 minutes. Just long enough to vote unanimously on the motion to declare force majeure on all outstanding silver contracts. just long enough to effectively admit that the world's primary silver pricing mechanism had become a fraud. But here's where the story gets even darker, because the force majeure declaration doesn't just affect current contracts, it affects future contracts. It affects the entire forward curve. It affects every industrial company that was counting on COMEX silver to fulfill their production schedules for the next 6 months. We're getting reports from electronics manufacturers that suppliers are canceling orders, not delaying. Canceling. Without reliable silver access, they can't guarantee delivery of silver-dependent components. The automotive industry is next. Tesla's gigafactories consume 1.2 million ounces annually through the COMEX system, which just declared it can't deliver. Ford, GM, BMW, Mercedes face the same shock. There's no substitute for silver in high-performance electrical applications. The renewable energy sector is in panic. Solar manufacturers use silver paste to connect photovoltaic cells. Without silver, panels don't work. The Green Revolution just hit a supply chain brick wall, because the COMEX force majeure isn't just a piece of paper filed with regulators. It's a signal to every major industrial player on the planet that the game has fundamentally changed. Right now, as I'm recording this, procurement officers at Fortune 500 companies are getting emergency calls from their suppliers. The conversation goes something like this. Remember that silver allocation we promised you for Q1? We need to talk. The suppliers aren't raising prices. They're not asking for better terms. They're asking for 6 months of payment up front, because they know what's coming. The scramble has already begun. We're getting reports from sources inside the major refineries that industrial orders are flooding in. Not the usual monthly allocations, not the predictable quarterly contracts, emergency orders, panic orders, the kind where companies are willing to pay any price, accept any timeline, just to secure supply before it disappears entirely. And it's not just American companies. The Europeans are panicking. The Japanese are panicking. Because they all relied on the same assumption. That silver would always be available at the published price through normal channels. That assumption just died with the COMEX force majeure declaration. Here's how this cascades. BMW needs silver for electric vehicles, maybe an ounce per car. When producing hundreds of thousands of vehicles, that adds up. Their supplier gets silver from dealers who source from COMEX. But now, COMEX can't deliver. BMW's just-in-time production line faces shutdown. Not from lack of demand, but from lack of 2 ounces of silver per vehicle. Multiply this across every silver-using industry. The ripple effects move at the speed of supply chain panic. From a geopolitical perspective, countries with physical silver stockpiles suddenly have enormous leverage. China has been accumulating for years. Russia built strategic reserves. India never stopped buying. These aren't accidents. When Western industry seizes up from silver shortages, guess who controls the supply? The same countries the West has been sanctioning. Economic warfare fought with physical resources, and the West brought paper contracts to a metal fight. The COMEX force majeure is also sending shockwaves through the broader precious metals complex. Because if they can't deliver silver, what makes anyone think they can deliver gold? Or platinum? Or palladium? The credibility of the entire futures-based pricing system is now in question. We're already seeing unusual activity in the gold market. Spreads between paper and physical are widening. Delivery delays are extending. The same symptoms that preceded the silver crisis are now appearing in gold. The contagion is spreading. The paper markets are losing their grip on reality, one metal at a time. But here's the truly terrifying part for the financial system. Silver isn't just an industrial metal. It's also monetary metal. Central banks hold it. Sovereign wealth funds trade it. When the delivery system for a monetary metal breaks down, it calls into question the entire fiat currency system that replaced it. Think about what money actually is. It's a store of value, a medium of exchange, a unit of account. For thousands of years, silver fulfilled all 3 functions. The modern fiat system replaced silver with paper promises backed by government debt. But what happens when people lose faith in paper promises? What happens when they realize that the backing of government debt is just more paper promises? They return to what has always worked. They return to real money, physical money, money you can hold in your hand and know that it will still have value tomorrow, regardless of what politicians do or what central banks print. The COMEX force majeure is accelerating this return to reality. It's forcing people to confront the difference between paper claims and physical possession, between promises and performance, between what the system says it can deliver and what it actually can deliver. And that gap between promise and performance is where fortunes are made and lost, where power shifts from one group to another, where the old financial order dies and the new one is born. We're not just witnessing the collapse of a commodity exchange, we're witnessing the birth pangs of a new monetary system, a system based on physical reality instead of financial fiction, a system where the people who control the real assets make the rules and the people who only hold paper promises become irrelevant. The age of paper is ending. The age of metal is beginning. And the COMEX force majeure just rang the opening bell. Welcome to the age of unobtainium, where the things that matter most are the things you cannot obtain, where paper promises are worthless and physical possession is everything. The COMEX just fired the starting gun on the greatest scramble for real assets in modern history. And if you're not already holding what you need, next week might be too late.